Good morning, good evening, and welcome. Well, my name is Anish Jan. On behalf of myself, the IBF team, our conference speakers, and all of our sponsors, welcome to our second virtual business forecasting and planning conference here in cyberspace. It's really wonderful to kick off another IBF conference in 2020. I know many people and organizations are facing challenges. No different at the IBF, although the pipeline of what keeps IBF going has changed dramatically in the last few months. It has been our duty to service the forecasting and planning community that is so dear to us. We hope you've enjoyed many of our webinars, town halls, roundtables, podcasts, and articles that we expect provides you with confidence as you navigate through what we're all dealing with today. But an IBF conference is where it all comes together, folks. The result of the recent interaction with IBF during the pandemic has helped us to determine what topics are needed right now that drives the agenda for the conference, and of course, gives you an opportunity to ask our experts how we can be successful in this new normal. And as I suspect, many of you are probably still working from the comfort of your home, but of course, the uncertainty of a global pandemic really doesn't bring us much comfort. COVID has certainly put a pause on our normal lives. This has impacted the health for many. Of course, our condolences go out to those of you who have lost loved ones during this pandemic, due to the pandemic, and certainly we salute all of our frontline healthcare workers around the world that are risking their lives for us. Well, in the marketplace today, we are seeing a lot of changes as a result of COVID. We're seeing shifts in demand, supply chain disruptions, and changes in consumer spending habits or behavior. And this is no different in the food and beverage industry, which is well represented in our speaking agenda for the next 3 days. For some folks, food, they are seeing threefold increases in demand. And of course, many food producers that have locked in their 2020 plans and forecasts back in 2019 never saw what we're dealing with today. You can also look at what economists reported in the first quarter of this year, reporting lower unemployment numbers and an increase in GDP. Remember that, folks? But of course, they were extrapolating older data that did not factor in the pandemic or the impact of the pandemic. Therefore, economists had to scramble to judgmentally revise their numbers. Of course, it seems many of us are scrambling too, and hopefully these IBF programs can help you chart a course in the choppy waters that we're all in right now. But for grocery stores, for many, foot traffic is down, but basket sizes or cart sizes have increased. And as a result, in many cases, grocery stores are out of stock of desirable goods. You know, many don't realize this, but half the food we consume actually takes place outside of the house, outside of our homes. Of course, there's your full service restaurants, but there's also fast food and the food we eat at stadiums and shows or concerts, university cafeterias, and more. But you may be thinking, well, if all those outside venues are shut down in order to flatten the curve, why don't we have more food available in grocery stores? Where is this excess capacity or supply? Well, part of the problem is fear, or some have called it food insecurity, the fear that we don't have enough food. And what's happening is inventory from the stores and warehouses is now being stored in our pantries and refrigerators. Some say it's short-term demand shock. We'll see. But right now, you could say that consumers are practicing supply and demand planning. And frankly, they're terrible at it. Why? Because of fear. And they're making decisions emotionally. Then after their carts and baskets are filled greater than normal, then what kicks in? A herd mentality. In other words, if I see someone stacking their cart with an abundance of toilet paper and water, I may think, maybe that's something I should do. I guess this is sort of like a FOMO moment, a fear of missing out. And then the behavior grows, causing shocks in the supply chain. So it's arguable that with all this pantry loading, that demand could actually be exceeding the capacity that has been left over as most retail outlets remain limited. Perhaps our speakers will share further perspective on this, which I'm looking forward to. And right now, many people are learning new skills and new platforms, including how to order groceries online from home. And after the pandemic is far from over, which we hope it happens sooner than later, it can be said that many of these folks that have developed new habits or skills will continue to use them in the future. Maybe we'll always order our groceries online. Maybe many of us will continue working from home. And maybe our kids will be homeschooled for the rest of their school life, including university. Yeah, God forbid. And I don't call it homeschooling, I call it home screaming, as I've shared before. But with all this pantry loading, revenue is actually up for some food companies. But due to the volatility and complexity, the cost to serve or the operating expenses have gone up too. Therefore, currently, in an effort to reduce complexity, you're now seeing companies compromise growing market share and embark on major SKU rationalization efforts. Mondelez, for one, has cut their product portfolio by 25%. Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola are also focusing on their core SKUs in pursuit of simplicity. And these are companies that have world-renowned major supply chains. And of course, efficiency improves in forecasting and planning when there's less to measure and less to manage. But you know, folks, I want to be clear. I hate to say that a pandemic is a good thing or lives lost is a good thing. It's not. By no means is that ever a good thing. But what this pandemic is doing is stress testing our S&OP and forecasting processes. It is now bringing to the surface what our shortcomings are. I've spoken to IBF members that have implemented S&OP best practices based on IBF principles, and they're holding up quite well in terms of getting accurate data on changing consumer behavior, information on supply constraints, and having top leaders available to make key planning decisions, which are critical now, happening for many no longer on a monthly basis, but on a weekly basis. And for some companies, this is not a major surprise. They have been through previous outbreaks, hurricanes, earthquakes, forest fires, floods, terrorism, new legislation, and other unplanned events. But of course, there are other IBF members I've spoken to where they had on the agenda to put a cadence together for balancing supply with demand, but it wasn't prioritized. It was delayed. Now those companies are acting quickly to learn and build the capabilities they need now more so than ever before. Yeah, they're being reactive, but better now than ever. So dealing with this new normal has made planning and forecasting extremely difficult. Although there are opportunities for some during this time, it is safe to say that there are more companies dealing with falling revenue and reduced demand. We just saw the greatest drop in GDP in our history in the USA, a drop of nearly 33%. I'm sure this level of contraction is no different in other parts of the world. So what does this unprecedented time mean for demand planning and forecasting functions in an organization? Certainly being able to understand this new consumer behavior, along with having industry knowledge, is what can help companies to survive. And for that, cross-functional collaboration and consensus is key. And who often orchestrates this function? Why, the demand planning function. Therefore, what does this mean for the function during this unprecedented time? The short answer is demand planning is needed more than ever. And on the job front, there are more job positions in our field than qualified professionals available right now. We have research to prove this, especially in terms of salaries. We have recruiting professionals that are members of IBF that can prove this as well. And just to bring to your attention, IBF has resources that can help you build the capabilities that companies are looking for to sustain a career in planning and forecasting. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, all of this is something to think about as you sit in the sessions for the next 3 days. How can we foster a better data-driven culture at our organization for better planning and forecasting? What types of people do we need? What types of processes do we need? How can we better leverage technology to expedite this process? And I say expedite the process because, folks, time is critical. Do you think there's any value in getting the results of a COVID test 2 weeks later? It's simply unacceptable. Delays in not understanding how consumers are purchasing your products is critical to success. And you can argue that this is unacceptable as well. Therefore, this is just a fraction of what you will learn at the IBF conference for the next 3 days. Therefore, I hope all of you are as excited as I am to be here